Hey everyone, welcome to Reno's World. I'm Reno Reigns, and tonight we're diving into the mystery of the Hexham Heads. We're talking bizarre legends, unexplained events, and the curious case of these so-called paranormal artifacts. Stick around as we break down every twist and turn of this eerie story. And before we jump in, make sure to hit that like button, follow for more, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get into it. In early 1971, in the quiet town of Hexham in Northumberland, England, a most unusual discovery was made. At 3 Reday Avenue, the modest suburban home of the Robson family became the setting for what would soon evolve into one of Britain's most enduring paranormal legends. According to local accounts, while the family was still settling into their new house, 2 brothers, Colin and Leslie Robson, were busy tending to the overgrown garden. While digging or weeding one afternoon, Colin unexpectedly unearthed a small, roughly spherical object that, upon closer inspection, turned out not to be an ordinary stone, but a carved head, measuring about 6 centimeters in height. Colin called to his younger brother Leslie, and soon both boys had found their own head, buried in different parts of the garden. The 2 objects were nearly identical in size, but exhibited distinct facial features. One was soon dubbed the Boy, because of its open face, hair carved in subtle stripes, and wide-set eyes paired with a long, prominent nose. The other, with a more severe countenance, including wildly bulging eyes and a pronounced beak nose, earned the names the Girl or the Witch in local folklore. The boys, unaware of the larger significance of their discovery, proudly brought the objects into the house. Almost immediately after the heads were introduced into the Robson household, strange events began to occur. Within a day or two, family members reported that objects in the house seemed to shift without explanation. The 2 heads, which had originally been left on a table in the living room, were later found to have mysteriously changed position overnight. They now appeared to face in the direction of the garden, as if drawn to the very spot from which they were unearthed. As days turned into weeks, the Robson family's home was beset by increasingly inexplicable phenomena. On one memorable night, the youngest daughter's bed was suddenly covered in broken glass, arranged in a seemingly deliberate pattern, and there were accounts of disembodied noises, a series of rapping sounds, and inexplicable crashes. Neighbors soon began to notice that the unusual happenings were not confined to just the Robson household. Reports from the adjacent home of the Dodd family added further layers to the mystery. One account tells of Ellen Dodd, a local mother who, while tending to her children in a cramped bedroom, had her young son complain that something had brushed against him in the middle of the night. In a separate incident, another child reportedly witnessed a shadowy, part-animal figure moving through the room. These unsettling events led the Dodd family to seek a new home, convinced that a malevolent presence had taken hold. With the intensity of the disturbances growing, the Robson family eventually decided that they could no longer manage the unexplained happenings. The heads, objects once viewed as mere curiosities, had taken on a dark, ominous aura. In an attempt to have the situation properly investigated and perhaps rid themselves of the escalating terror, the family handed the heads over to local authorities. They were first sent to the Newcastle Museum of Antiquities, where initial drawings and petrological tests were conducted by local experts. While some archaeologists there were intrigued by the possibility that the heads might be ancient relics, the lack of a secure archaeological context, having been found in a back garden rather than a controlled excavation, left many questions unanswered. Soon after their examination in Newcastle, the heads found themselves in the care of Dr. Anne Ross, an academic with a reputation for her work on Celtic artifacts. Dr. Ross, who had long been interested in the ancient Celtic tradition that venerated the human head as the seat of the soul, saw in these objects a connection to ritual practices of a bygone era. She argued that the heads might be part of a wider Celtic cult involving the severed head as a potent symbol of divinity and otherworldly power. To her, the head's carved features and even the application of pigments hinted at an ancient origin. In her account, however, the investigation into their origins took a personal toll. While keeping the heads at her residence in Hampshire for closer study, Dr. Ross experienced her own series of supernatural encounters. On one chilling night, she awoke around 2 a.m. to find, in the dim glow of her hallway, a tall, shadowy figure moving silently out of her bedroom. Described as part human and part animal, some sources liken it to a werewolf or a half-sheep, half-man creature. The apparition moved with deliberate purpose toward the kitchen before vanishing. Later, her daughter Berenice recounted an equally harrowing incident in which she encountered a similar figure on the stairs. These experiences only deepened Dr. Ross's conviction that the heads were not merely historical curios, but objects imbued with a cursed, supernatural energy. Despite Dr. Ross's compelling narrative and extensive media coverage, skeptics began to question the true origins of the Hexham Heads. As news of the paranormal events spread, a man named Des Craigie came forward with a revelation that cast doubt on their supposed ancient origins. Craigie, who had lived in Hexham decades earlier, claimed that he had personally made the heads as a boy, using concrete and a simple mold. His account suggested that the heads were not ancient relics of a lost Celtic cult, but rather crude homemade artifacts from the mid-20th century. This revelation sparked heated debate among researchers and paranormal enthusiasts alike. If Craigie's story was true, it could explain why initial petrological tests at the Newcastle Museum suggested that the heads were made of a mixture of modern materials, including cement and sand, rather than ancient stone. However, those who had experienced supernatural occurrences remained unconvinced. The Dodd and Robson families, along with Dr. Ross, continued to insist that the heads possessed an unexplainable energy, regardless of their physical origins. In the years that followed, the Hexham Heads changed hands multiple times, moving between private collectors, researchers, and museums. However, their exact whereabouts eventually became unknown. Some believe the heads were lost or stolen, while others speculate that they were deliberately hidden due to their troubling history. Even without the physical heads, the legend of Hexham persisted. The chilling accounts of shadowy figures, poltergeist activity, and inexplicable disturbances remain a staple of British paranormal folklore. To this day, theories continue to circulate. Were the heads truly ancient artifacts imbued with supernatural power? Did they somehow attract dark forces to those who possessed them? Or was the entire story a case of mass hysteria fueled by eerie coincidences and suggestive storytelling? There is no credible, peer-reviewed scientific evidence supporting the paranormal claims associated with the Hexham Heads. Investigations by local experts, such as the petrological tests conducted at the Newcastle Museum of Antiquities, indicated that the heads were made from modern materials, e.g. a cement-sand mixture, rather than ancient stone. Additionally, because the heads were found in a garden rather than a controlled archaeological dig, their provenance is highly questionable. While local folklore recounts eerie happenings, such as objects moving on their own and sightings of shadowy figures, these accounts are anecdotal and have not been substantiated by any systematic scientific study. According to several accounts, including the summary on Wikipedia, a man named Desmond Craigie later claimed responsibility for creating the Hexham Heads in 1956. He reportedly made them using modern materials, essentially a cement and sand mix, while living in the house that the Robson family later occupied. Scientific analysis, such as Professor Dearman's study at the University of Newcastle, supports the idea that the heads were artificially molded rather than carved from ancient stone, lending weight to Craigie's claim that they were modern creations rather than genuine ancient relics. As for why he might have hoaxed it, the motives remain somewhat speculative. Some possible explanations include: Craigie might have intended the creation as a practical joke, a playful nod to local folklore that would later capture the community's imagination. Given that he allegedly made the heads for his daughter, the act might have been a personal, if mischievous, attempt to imbue an ordinary object with a sense of mystery or cultural significance. By crafting something that later became entwined with paranormal legends, Craigie may have sought an indirect form of recognition or notoriety, even if only in local lore. Modern material evidence and the ambiguous, playful nature of the story suggest that the Hexham Heads were likely the product of a deliberate hoax, one that has grown into an enduring and intriguing piece of British paranormal folklore. Ultimately, While definitive evidence of his exact intentions is lacking, the scientific evidence available points to them being modern objects with no verifiable connection to ancient cult practices or supernatural phenomena. All right, everyone, that's a wrap for tonight's deep dive into the mystery of the Hexham Heads. I'm Reno Reigns, and I hope you enjoyed unraveling the legends and the unknown with me. Remember, your thoughts and theories are what keep the conversation alive, so hit that like button, drop a comment, and be sure to follow for more intriguing stories. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the unexplained on Reno's World. Thanks for tuning in.